let us know what is meant by food chains and food webs. Whenever there is flow of energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level, flow of energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level constitutes what is known as a food chain. So, transfer of food energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level in an ecosystem represents what is known as food chain. So, a food chain can be defined as transfer of food energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level, transfer of food energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level with a process of eating and being eaten. Eating and being eaten. Go back to the examples that we have seen. Grass, grasshopper, frogs and snakes. This represents a typical food chain in a terrestrial ecosystem. Or take the example of algae, insect larvae, fishes, birds. A typical food chain in the aquatic ecosystem. Or look at the example of tree, birds, bird lice and protozoans. This is also an example of a food chain where transfer of food energy is taking place from one parasite to another parasite. So all the three examples that I gave you earlier, they are all examples of food chains. Broadly, food chains can be classified into three types. food chains can be broadly classified into three types. One type of food chain is called herbivorous food chain, also called grazing food chain. Herbivorous food chain or grazing food chain. A herbivorous food chain is one where the primary consumer will be always a herbivorous animal. Wherever the primary consumer is a herbivorous animal, the food chain is called herbivorous food chain. For example, the first two examples of food chains here, both of them are herbivorous food chains. Herbivorous food chains happen to be the most common type of food chain in any ecosystem, aquatic or terrestrial. They happen to be the most common type of food chains. Then we have detritivorous food chains. Detritivorous food chains, where transfer of food energy involves detritivores as consumers. A primary consumer may be a detritivore, or a secondary consumer may be a detritivore, and so on. So if the transfer of food energy involves detritivorous animals at various levels of consumption, then it is called as a detritivorous food chain. For example, food chains involving earthworms. Food chains involving earthworms are best examples of detritivorous food chains. The third type happens to be parasitic food chains. Parasitic food chains. Parasitic food chains are those where transfer of food energy involves a series of parasites. That means transfer of food energy occurs here from one parasite to another parasite. Look at this example. Example number 3. Tree. Birds are parasitic on the tree. Bird lice are parasitic on the birds. Protozoans are parasitic inside the bird lice. So food energy is getting transferred from tree to the birds, from birds to their hyperparasites, bird lice, from bird lice to their hyperparasites, protozoans. Such a food chain is described as parasitic food chain. Parasitic food chains are very common in any ecosystem, so they happen to be the second most common type of food chains. The first most common type of food chains in any ecosystem will be herbivorous food chains. The second most common food chains will be parasitic food chains, and the rest of the food chains in an ecosystem will be detritivorous food chains.